Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Katie Johns, Managing Editor of Stormwater Solutions. On behalf of SWS and our sponsor, AQUALIS, I'd like to welcome you to today's presentation titled Requires Action, Repairs and Rehabilitation Fundamentals. In this webinar, we will review key terminology and methodologies for each stormwater post-construction approaches, including repair and rehabilitation, provide insight on new technologies that allow for easy assessing, reviewing, and investigating, providing thorough data to make informed decisions on SCMs, explore budgeting and changing funding initiatives for repairs and rehabilitation projects, and how these changes impact current and future implementation, and highlight real-life case studies from minor repairs to large-scale rehabilitations, including data analysis, project assessment, and engineering expertise. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes, but first, a little housekeeping. You will notice on your viewer that you have the ability to ask questions. We encourage you to do so, and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation based on time availability. Any questions we do not get to, we will answer offline. Our presenter today is Jeff Urban, Vice President, Enterprise Account Management at AQUALIS. Jeff has over 8 years of water resource management experience working directly with some of the largest retailers and property management groups in the United States for its stormwater and lift station solutions. He has worked on facility maintenance projects in the field, large-scale project managed, and worked from an account manager position. His experience provided his perspective on what the project demands and how best to execute for the client with the least disruption. He has experience throughout the country with some unique demands and requirements at the local and state levels in relation to stormwater and lift station management. Jeff's educational background is in finance and sustainability, which has proven to be a good match for the water resource industry as facility managers and property owners strive to balance cost, value, compliance, and eco-friendly solutions where possible. With that, I would like to turn it over to Jeff. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Katie. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining today. As Katie mentioned, we're hoping that you get a lot out of this presentation today in regards to when action is required, repairs and rehabilitations to your stormwater system. So here's a picture of me. I'm up here in Minneapolis right now, staring at about 14 inches of snow on the ground. So it is supposed to be 50 degrees tomorrow, a little unseasonably warm up here, but honored to be with you guys today, and again, hopefully you get a little bit out of this presentation and come away with some ideas and some action plans for your particular stormwater system. Katie hit my work history pretty well. My day-to-day now is working with some of our largest clients, across the U.S. With their stormwater needs and their water compliance needs. Kind of working for best solutions, working on budgeting, hand in hand with our clientele, making sure they're getting the best bang for their buck, and most importantly, making sure their stormwater systems are staying in compliance and things are functioning as they should. And in the retail world, a lot of our clientele are in the retail world, making sure those customers and guests are coming in and out of the doors in a safe way, and things are running smoothly in the retail world. Moving on, I know Katie touched on these a little bit, so I'm not going to hit them too hard again, but just our learning objectives. Really the goal for me, we're going to learn some key terms. We're going to learn a little bit about new technology and new products that are available, new materials out there in the repair and rehabilitation world when it comes to stormwater that, may be a good fit when looking at a repair or rehabilitation. We're going to talk about budgeting. Some of these items are small in cost. Some of these are very large in cost. A good stormwater management company, a partnership, you can kind of work together hand in hand, not only with the build cost of some of these items, but also the life cycle cost. So we'll touch on a few items there and then really explore some examples. I'm going to show you guys some pictures. I want to show you some real world examples of what we're dealing with, pretty much day to day, what we have dealt with. These examples are all, past work that we've done and completed throughout the United States in a wide variety of climates and regions. So again, the goal at the end of the day is for you to come away with a better understanding of possible failures within your stormwater system and what to keep an eye for, what to keep an eye out for, and how to possibly prevent some of these items that may pop up. So moving on, and to kind of start at the baseline, stormwater regulations, what it means. And this is kind of our, why are we even paying attention to this? And here's a slide, an example. Obviously, before this shop was built and this parking lot was built, this is probably grass or a forest of some kind. And whenever we disturb nature or the original landscape, in this case, creating a lot of impervious surfaces where rainwater is no longer going to hit the ground and get absorbed or run to the nearest stream or lake or ocean without first picking up some items that have been disturbed, on the impervious surfaces. Obviously, you can imagine parking lots pick up a lot of oil and grease from cars, salt in the wintertime, fertilizer, pesticides from nearby landscaping. All of this is flowing downstream into our waterways and eventually, kind of being recycled, whether it's going back into the water table or, again, downstream to the streams and ponds that we all maybe recreate in or eventually get our drinking water from. So it's very important that we do our part based on the design and the intent by the municipalities on filtering some of this water. So again, an example here that when it hits these impervious systems, the water is running into a, in this case, a retention pond on this particular site. That water can get filtered a little bit more naturally, and then eventually outletted, to the downstream river or lake or eventually ocean, and things get accomplished. But moving on, the EPA. All the way back in 1972, established the phase 1 of the Clean Water Act. And that's kind of basically our why as we get into, why are we paying attention to this? And that phase 1 of the Clean Water Act basically established the basic structure for regulating discharges and quality standards of surface waters. In around the year 2000, phase 2 of the Clean Water Act was implemented. Just due to time, more technology, more information, Congress and the EPA were able to improve upon the original phase 1. This basically, highlights pushing that the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System was created and basically permitted for any land disturbance over 1 acre. So as we go think about that previous slide, probably over an acre of land is not very much. You're actually required to be permitted to make sure your stormwater runoff is being filtered and moved properly under this law. When you're not in compliance, expensive fines and negative publicity can be a consequence. And one point that we'll keep on touching on throughout the presentation is the EPA pushes these regulations down to the state and the municipal levels to regulate. And what we are seeing, being in the field every day, communicating with our customers every day, is we are seeing a higher importance put on this, put on the regulations and the adherence to these permits and your agreements with how your facility or apartment complex or store was built. I think there was a little pause as the rest of the world with COVID in 2020, as we were kind of coming to grips with things, last March and through the summer. But now things have kind of picked up, almost business as usual. And again, kind of continuing on more recently, Congress just enacted November 6th of 2021, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which within, among a lot of different things, included some water quality stormwater funding. This is going to help municipalities with aging infrastructure, new technology, research into some of their ideas as far as water quality and what's required. This to me, more than anything, just spells out the continuing trend that, municipalities that are tasked with enforcing these rules and regulations enacted by the Clean Water Act and the EPA. This is going to give them a little bit more clout, a little bit more funding to make sure that, the local businesses and even, on the private side, homeowners and HOAs and stuff are complying with what you're supposed to be doing given your particular system. So it's something that we all need to be, aware of. It's already starting to trend up, and that was before November with the passing of this with this act. So again, I think it's going to continue to become, more and more important as we move forward. And as we kind of start to think about stormwater, you're going to hear a lot this from me today. And here at AQUALIS, we believe strongly in preventative measures. We're going to talk a lot about repairs and rehabilitations and what comes along with that. But it's the preventative maintenance that's key to us. Having the right professional on site and doing what we can proactively to prevent some of these larger items from popping up. And so when we think about preventative maintenance, it's definitely the best way to reduce costly repairs and rehabs over time. I think you'll hear a lot of comparisons and analogies between, maybe I know a lot of us probably own a vehicle or a car or a truck of some kind. And it's a lot of the same stuff. We use that car and truck, almost every day, just like our stormwater system. If you're not changing the oil, you're not rotating the tires, making sure your filters are clean, things are probably going to start to, pop up with that vehicle. And it's the same thing with stormwater in your stormwater system. Getting back to the EPA and the municipalities, when your building or structure or property was built, there was an O&M agreement agreed upon with the municipality on the design of your particular property and how often it should be maintained, how often it's going to be inspected, what kind of the minimum requirements are. And so a preventative maintenance plan is going to make sure you're adhering to that. You're technically required to follow that. In some municipalities enforce more than others. When you think about sensitive watersheds down in the Florida region, St. John's River, Chesapeake Bay area, in the Pacific Northwest, when we think about, again, sensitive watersheds, they're a little bit more high profile. Regulations are definitely being watched a little bit more closely than others. But again, the overall trend is municipalities are putting the stress on making sure you're compliant with your system. During a preventative maintenance visit, we're looking for safety and compliance issues, potential hazards. Are the assets fully, accessible, observable for an inspector? An inspection can happen just about any time from the municipality. If they can't see something, they usually kind of count it as, out of compliance. So we got to make sure during preventative maintenance that all of your assets are visible and in good shape. And then finally, we're going to document through reporting, pictures, different things like that, what may have been identified as out of scope or not part or not in compliance, and report that to our customers and to you as property owners or individuals that have a stormwater system, and so we can make sound decisions on what to do about it and how quickly we need to move to ensure the system is moving water like it should. Unfortunately, sometimes properties are handed down, information is lost in the shuffle, to no fault of anybody in particular, that there's times that the stormwater system might be out of sight, out of mind. You can even be unaware that part of a particular system is even yours to maintain. A lot of this information is buried into real estate transactions when the property was built. And so just being, kind of step number one, as far as I'm concerned, is making sure you're aware of, what lies within your property, what may be lying outside your property that you're responsible for, and then keying in on that O&M agreement. Your local municipality will have that. You can reach out, either to a stormwater professional, like a company like AQUALIS can help, track that down with your municipality, but reaching out to the stormwater division of your local city or township, they can usually have a copy of that on file, and you can understand what you're exactly responsible for. Like I said, some of these systems can be tucked back behind buildings, hidden in parking lots, underneath parking lots, and a lack of awareness, even knowing that you're responsible for something. We've helped a client recently down in Florida. I mean, they've got a stormwater pond that was basically an easement as part of their original real estate transaction. This pond is hundreds of yards away from their actual real estate border, but the language in the real estate deal, says they're responsible for the maintenance, and they never do that. And so, not to anybody's fault, not to the stores or anybody else, but just not even awareing it's their responsibility and knowing what those regulations are. And unfortunately, when we get in these situations, sometimes there's costly repairs to get these systems back into shape. Or what could happen is a notice of violation is submitted by the municipality, and an expensive fine or bad publicity or anything like that can be issued to the facility or store, and basically making you to make sure you get it back in shape and things are functioning as designed. And kind of to highlight that, I've got a couple of graphs here. We put these together, basically on the Y axis, the up and down axis is the condition of the asset. As we move from left to right on the x-axis is time. There are certain customers, whether it's by design or just like that out of sight, out of mind situation, where the system's basically ran until it fails. And you can see as time increases, the condition of the stormwater asset decreases, and especially as we get towards the end there, it decreases very quickly with the more time you put on it. And again, liking it back to the car example, if you never change your oil, never change your batteries, rotated your tires, you could probably get by for a while, but there's come to a point where things are going to be coming, failing, pretty quickly and pretty often. And again, at the run to fail investment method, you basically, run the condition down, and then there's that extreme arrow going vertical up. That's your replacement cost. A lot of times, in this situation, you don't know when these costs are going to hit. I, myself own a home, and I don't like big unexpected costs when it comes to things that I think are, should work for a long period of time. So I know a lot of our clientele don't like that either. So unfortunately, when you run that run to fail investment method, those unknown larger costs do happen. Looking at the right-hand graph, the maintenance investment method, yes, there is some cost in preventative maintenance measures. You're going to have to pay for those services, but those costs are very minimal in comparison. With time, you can budget, you can foresee some issues that may pop up down the line, and plan for some of those as you think about budgeting and what may be coming online. And most of all, we're making sure that condition of those assets are in pretty much excellent or as built condition for as long as we can. So very important. You're going to hear me say it all presentation long, is the power of preventative maintenance and what it can do for you. But kind of continuing on in some of the terminology, we talk about preventative maintenance, routine, keeping things updated, in good shape. And we talk about, the clock is kind of our symbol for routine. We're doing this periodically, whether it's based on the O&M agreement or based on our experience in the particular area. We look for potential hazards, as we see with the hazard sign. We look for failures, and then finally, the scope of work, as we kind of think about it during preventative maintenance, we are looking for some items that may be small. If we can find that crack, if we can find that small erosion, we can get that repaired as part of preventative maintenance, and that's kind of where it takes us next, and we would call that corrective maintenance. Again, these are smaller items that are pretty much taken care of during routine maintenance, and part of our scope of work. And you see the clipboard there. Kind of, we've identified a failure, but it falls within our scope of work. Whether it's an invasive tree that might be growing in your stormwater pond that we need to get out of there before it becomes we see a lot of them in the upper Midwest, a cottonwood. Cottonwood could be a 1-inch sapling, and I've seen cottonwoods that are 4 or 5 feet in diameter. So if left untouched, that thing could be a big problem. And part of our preventative maintenance and corrective maintenance items is we're going to try to take care of all we can as soon as it starts. Unfortunately, just like owning a car, repair is going to happen. You may hit a pothole and bust up a tire. You're going to need new brakes eventually. Things like that are going to happen. Repairs are typically isolated incidents within the stormwater system. They're typically smaller in scope. It just may be one part of the system that needs a little TLC. At that point, during a preventative maintenance visit, we would identify that, come back to the customer, present to them our proposal for fixing, and kind of the pros and cons of what you need to do, or what a regulator might find if they see it, and give you the best plan of action, from there. And then lastly, rehabilitation is more of I would call it a large scale non-compliance issue for sure. Sometimes there are multiple repairs within the rehabilitation. As we see in this picture there, that pond being rehabilitated, it was full of sediment. We're removing that sediment. There are structures within that pond, inlets, outlet control structures that may need repaired along with the pond itself. So rehabs are definitely something that we want to avoid in the stormwater world, but unfortunately they happen sometimes, and like I mentioned before, sometimes they happen with nobody's fault. So it's just something that we would see during routine maintenance or taking over a site that maybe hasn't been touched in a while, is where we run into a lot of rehabs. But I'll show you some examples later here in the presentation of some of the larger scale things that we've done and how they pop up. But, as far as terminology, this is what we want to cover. A lot of these terms are overlapping. It's not a clear cut, Webster's dictionary definition of everything, but kind of, the industry jargon that we use day to day focuses on those items, and is something that we definitely want to stress and have you understand by the end of this presentation. But before we get into actual repairs in some of the examples, we kind of want to focus, as we talk about preventative maintenance, getting the right expert, on site doing your work for your stormwater system. We have a comparison here between the stormwater expert and landscaping expert. A certified stormwater professional, they're going to understand the multifaceted engineering, the regulatory, the ecological complexities of that particular system. Regionally, things can vary. The stormwater work we're doing in Arizona right now varies greatly from the stormwater work we're doing over in Florida. Obviously, two different climates, both hot, but a lot of water differences between the two. And having that expert that understands the intricacies between those types of systems that are keyed in. I wouldn't want to take our Arizona crew and just throw them into a situation down in Florida. They could definitely learn it, but having that local knowledge regarding these systems and how to maintain them is definitely something that a stormwater expert keys in on. And really, the landscape expert is professional knowledge with vegetation management, but it's more aesthetic. It's more, just creating that safe outdoor space. And this is nothing about landscapers. We do landscaping work. We have them on staff. We love them, and they do great work. But when it comes to stormwater, we do feel that having that stormwater certified expert on staff is, leaps and bounds better than just anybody running on and, as you see in the lower left-hand picture, there's a stormwater pond, and yes, probably anybody could go by and mow that grass, but there are particulars of that system that we would want that stormwater expert to key in on as he's mowing that grass, and how high to mow it, and how low towards the water to mow it, where maybe a landscape expert just wouldn't have that knowledge to no fault of their own. But, again, keying in on the stormwater professional, even when it comes to repairs or corrective maintenance, before breaking down, we're going to make sure we understand the municipal compliance behind what we're doing as far as the repair. The historical data is key. A lot of our clientele we've been working with for almost as long as we've been in business, over 20 years. And, with that, we get to see the changes of a site. We get to know the intricacies, figure out what's working, what's not working, and make those right suggestions. And really just evaluate the big picture. If we come across erosion, not only is it fixing the erosion, but why is this area eroding? Let's find the root cause and make sure we take care of that so it doesn't happen again. The same can be said with sinkholes, that I'm sure you guys have all seen them in parking lots or different things, but a lot of the times with sinkholes, something's causing that subsurface grade to move. A lot of times it's water, and it's often very stormwater related. So we want to make sure we're looking at that big picture and suggesting the right repair. And then during stormwater projects, I'm sure you guys have all seen large construction projects with silt fences around the area. The rock, gravel in and out of a construction area. Those are all meant for stormwater compliance, making sure none of that disturbed soil moves off site more than it should. As we're working on things. And so during a stormwater project, we're going to definitely make sure, a stormwater professional is definitely going to make sure that we're adhering to those items and definitely being aware. And then finally, post maintenance, post repair, we want to maintain that compliance with these systems. We want to make sure we're evaluating the inner workings. We're using the appropriate equipment and have the appropriate certifications to ensure that system longevity. A quick example case study. We had a situation with a customer of ours that the landscapers by mistake got into the stormwater pond, and as you see in the upper right-hand picture, they actually cut the grass a little too short for that storm, and that's actually a stormwater pond berm. And this is a detention pond that can be dry like you see there now, or fill up with water. And given the grass was cut too short, actually caused some erosion and washout with the way the water level was rising and decreasing. You can see that inlet in the upper left-hand corner picture, perfect round circle. They hit this area with some herbicide, taking care of some invasive weeds and stuff that were popping up. But at the same time, this caused some erosion. This is an inlet where stormwater comes in. We need it vegetated. We definitely don't want weeds and invasive species in there, but we definitely want to maintain that vegetation around there, along with the riprap you see, to make sure that we slow that water down and things are kept in shape and stabilized. So we were able to come in and take care of this for this particular client. Adding signage is a big thing that you can do for pretty cheap around your property. Making sure that landscapers, or like as we encounter here in the upper Midwest, snow plows, sometimes when you're snow plowing a parking lot, just dumping it into the stormwater pond on the slopes. Maybe you have bioretention throughout the parking lot, little low areas, swales throughout your parking lot. It's easy to dump that snow in those areas, but having that signage to prevent that, because that's definitely a no-no where we come from, and can definitely cause your system to fail sooner than it should. So again, just a quick case study and an example of why we believe a stormwater expert is definitely the right solution to ensuring your ponds and your assets on site are being maintained properly. And moving on, we want to kind of continue with repairs. We talk about the fundamentals of a repair. Again, the repair is usually an isolated, incident within your stormwater system, or just a small handful of a few that we find during preventative maintenance, or you maybe find, sinkholes pop up, and sometimes those things are found by customers or residents or property managers or whomever. And those items typically need to be fixed pretty quickly. And again, the goal is to correct that localized failure to as-built conditions. When we think about a repair, it requires, careful preparation and planning, determining, the best steps. That center picture on the top, we're actually repairing that drain you see on the building in the background, is a roof leader. So rainwater hits the top of this building and runs down that roof leader, goes underground to the nearest stormwater catch basin. And that roof leader was not draining correctly. And we ran a camera inside that pipe and found it was full of crud and got it collapsed somehow. And here we are hydro excavating to make sure we're getting down to that roof leader very carefully, because there was a lot of conduits and other items around that area that we didn't want to strike with, throwing a mini excavator bucket or anything like that. So again, just being mindful of that, being mindful of other items around your repairs areas that may either be contributing or get in the way of a potential repair is something we want to focus on. As I mentioned, CCTV, we'll get into that later, but is basically closed circuit television. We're able to find and take a look inside structures via closed circuit television to ensure we're proposing the correct repair. And then again, just ensure during that repair process that other system components are not impacted. If we're working on an outlet of a pond and we need that outlet area dry, we need to have a plan in place for, if it happens to rain during that week of work and the rainwater starts flowing into the pond, where's this pond going to flow to? Does it have enough capacity to hold, or do we need to, route it somewhere else temporarily as we do the ultimate repair? So these are some items that we're always thinking about during stormwater repairs, and, kind of furthering the knowledge here on repairs. We talk about common repairs, wear and tear, cracks, separations. We do a lot of catch basin work, especially around the upper Midwest, the Northeast, anywhere where there's a lot of freeze and thaw. There's a lot of stress on the catch basin around your system. Seasonal changes, I've talked about freeze and thaw, just as simple as that left-hand picture there of leaves covering your catch basin. If not recognized, and it's not something that we can really prevent, leaves are going to be shed from the trees that they grow upon. But making sure during those stormwater preventative maintenance visits, or just general housekeeping throughout your parking lot, even by the property manager, making sure those grates are nice and free and clear, so that stormwater can move as it should. I touched on housekeeping practices. One of the big things is trash. We remove a lot of trash from stormwater systems, just about anywhere. With most of our work being done in the retail world, things get dropped, things get missed when they get tried to thrown away. A lot of these have a tendency to end up in the stormwater system, just through whether it be wind or flow or whatever. So keeping those housekeeping practices, whether it's on your own property, is a big item that we typically see a lot of and can cause some downstream issues. And definitely would be pointed out by a regulator if they saw too much trash for a particular area. I mean, some with time is going to build up, and then they definitely want to see that removed periodically. Construction practices we run into, I would say, they're the example there on the left. The paving company basically paved over the edge of that catch basin. So not only do they probably get some things down inside that catch basin, they should protect that when doing that type of work, but just makes for maintenance and removing that grate a lot tougher moving forward. We see a lot of things with using heavy equipment in the bottom of a pond or the bottom of a swale that's meant to receive water and let that water infiltrate. Running around with a bunch of heavy equipment in there during construction only compacts all that soil and prevents some of that infiltration. So we see a lot of that. It's just something that your stormwater professional, or at least having them consult during some of this work, would be a good idea and can be preventable. And then there's just, we have engineering on issues on here, and they're not meant to say engineers design something improperly, but these systems are designed, to take on sediment and collect sediment, rather than sending it downstream into our waterways. It's designed to capture some of that, those items running off from the parking lot. And with time, things are going to build up, and some of these items are going to need to be, brought back to original design. So when we talk about engineering issues, it's more about just that wear and tear, that sediment buildup over time, and getting those areas back to snuff. So patching and replacing. We often run into this when we're thinking about repair items. More times than not, depending on the age of the infrastructure, the severity of the damage, how often this is being repeated, we can make that suggestion, whether to patch or replace. There's always that fine line, especially when it comes to things that are cracking. What can you do to, is it worth to spend the small amount now and maybe have to deal with it in a year from now if that patch, doesn't hold? But, we can consult with our clientele and make those suggestions based on experience. There's sometimes that we may suggest an upgrade or replacement rather than, a patch. I think it's important to note that you cannot, get into a system and upgrade it so much as you're deviating from the original design. Anything outside the original design needs to be permitted. And I want to make sure everybody, comes away knowing that. Sometimes, using a different material, but at the same size to make sure the water can flow at the same rate as it was designed is acceptable. But again, when we talk about system upgrades or replacements and stuff, it's definitely looked at as a maintenance item in terms of the repair, and we're just bringing that system back to original design. Sometimes it's using a little bit different product, and we'll get into kind of some of the tech and advancements later on. But even the example here's a case study of a catch basin. So you're looking inside of a catch basin that may be in your parking lot that has normally a slotted grate on top. Stormwater runs throughout the parking lot, through the grates, into this structure and through these pipes. But you can see in the before picture the missing, concrete there. You see the reinforcement of the metal strands there. It's just deteriorated with time. I don't know where this picture was from, but it was probably from the upper Midwest, where the freeze thaw compounds that. In these situations, a lot of times sinkholes are nearby, and they can be 4 or 5 feet away. But when that subgrade is lost through the deterioration of these riser rings, you can see there it's ended up in the bottom of this catch basin. It creates a void underneath that asphalt or the adjacent area, and those areas will sink over time. So making sure we're repairing and getting to that root cause. So here we installed some HDPE riser rings, to get that catch basin back to the proper grade and ensure a long-lasting repair. That's just something that we do a lot of. I'm sure you've ran into it if you're a property manager or a business owner yourself on here, especially in the freeze-thaw areas of the United States. It's something that, we run into a lot. We repair a lot of these. It's just something kind of like brake pads for your car. It's going to happen. The tech advancements that I'll talk about a little bit later have helped extend the life of these. But these things take a lot of abuse. A lot of rainwater flows through them. So it's, something that we come across pretty commonly throughout the United States. And so we've talked about repairs. We've talked about corrective maintenance items, rehabilitation, and some of the fundamentals going into this. More times than not, you're not going to want to do a rehabilitation to anything on your stormwater, to your stormwater system by choice. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you buy a property that maybe needs a little love and care to get it back to original design, and a rehabilitation is needed. But again, the goal here is restore that neglected system back in entirety, back to its original compliance standards and design. Again, when I think of a rehab, I think of the example in the top picture, the pond being totally regraded and included in the rehabilitation, which includes those channels within where you see the water standing. There's inlets, there's outlets there. In the left-hand picture there, inside that vault, that is actually a stormwater vault underneath the parking lot, and water flows in there. And when we think of repairing one of these, a lot of times these systems do unfortunately get into an out of sight, out of mind situation. A lot of property owners sometimes don't even know they exist, and that water needs to be filtered. And I've got a slide that shows how that looks in there. But normally a much large scale repair involving many different repairs within, if that makes sense. A phase approach often works for us when we're thinking about a rehabilitation. A neglected pond could be literally a jungle if we're dealing with them in Florida. And so a lot of the times we can't even decipher what's in there. How are the structural assets within? So taking that phased approach to clear first, and then, kind of do another assessment once that part is done, has worked well for us. And again, it usually begins with an inspection to figure out that current state. Unfortunately, a lot of rehabs are initiated by municipalities that find that pond that you may not know that you're responsible for, or that underground vault, and we want to make sure that those areas are taken care of. And so again, getting into common rehabilitations, that left-hand picture is a picture of a vault full of sediment, large-scale trash removals, aging infrastructure. The car example, at some point, your car is going to fail. You're going to get too many miles on it, and maybe a new car or getting that car totally redone. It would be the proper step, and sometimes that's the right way to do it in the stormwater world as well. We hear about global warming, major events. We've had, hopefully anybody in Kentucky here is safe from those recent tornadoes. But these major weather events that seem more and more common are definitely putting more stress on the stormwater systems. I know the Pacific Northwest, we've been doing a lot of work out there the last couple of days because they've been receiving a ton of rain that's going on, and it just seems to be more common, nowadays. And I don't know if that's global warming or not, but there's something to be said about the commonality of these things. Intrusions, we talk about invasive species, and as I get into this next example, cattails, phragmites is what you're seeing in the top picture there. They've invaded this pond. They're not supposed to be there. They weren't designed to be there. We've also had some volunteer growth along that fence line with those bushes and things. This was a pond that loses capacity with all these items in there. Can't be maintained properly, so we're able to come in and rehab this pond to get it back to original design, which is what you see in the after picture. As I alluded to before, the underground systems, that before picture is a vault in those canisters that's just full of sediment. These systems usually lie underneath your parking lots, could be underneath your buildings, but stormwater, due to usually lack of real estate for a pond, stormwater flows in there, is filtered through these actual filter canisters and out to the eventual outlet area downstream. And these systems need to be maintained. If you allow too much sediment to get into these vaults, the filters themselves will clog up too quickly and just causing for costly repairs. It's not the cheapest item in the world to make sure we're inspecting and cleaning those periodically. But it's certainly, a good, way cheaper than having to go in there and replace everything, especially prematurely. I know we touched on, skip over one. I know we touched on sinkholes. Here's a case study, a project we did, and this is one of your bigger sinkholes that you're going to see. And obviously in the upper left-hand corner, we have parking lot sinking in. We pop down in there and understand that, the particular owner of this property wasn't even aware that there was a 8-foot diameter corrugated metal pipe underneath his parking lot where all the stormwater rushed to. And that's what the condition of that pipe looked at when we jumped down in it to check it out. Lack of maintenance over time, the construction practices, we don't think they, after measuring it and getting down there, we don't think they sloped these pipes well enough, and the water was just able to stay within these pipes for longer than it should and eventually corrode them, causing this collapse at the seam. Obviously a huge issue to this business, safety issue, and you can imagine the cost of doing this work wasn't cheap, and but definitely necessary to get this system back to spec. But could have been, these systems are designed to last 70 years. This one lasted 20, and it literally lasted that long, not only due to construction practices, but preventative maintenance plan, cleaning that pipe, making sure that pipe is no sediment is further compounding the water or the lack of water movement in there. Could have made this system last way longer than it did. So, moving on, I want to touch on, new technologies. We touched on CCTV, closed caption television, or closed circuit television, sorry. We talk about trenchless pipe repairs, spin casting, pipelining. The more or the less invasive we are, as seen in that last rehabilitation example, we had no choice but to dig in from the top. But there are new technologies now where we can basically line pipes with smaller pipes, but keep the flow the same, and or spin casting product within that particular damaged pipe without digging in from the top. And that's been, we actually just completed a project in North Carolina for one of our customers. It was a big success, and easy in, easy out as far as some of those emerging technologies and repair methods. Sock slope stabilization, you've all probably seen this on a golf course and probably didn't realize it, but they use it a lot near ponds with water levels rising and lowering. It deteriorates the pond edge. Sock slopes able to utilize the fabric and material and grow vegetation within to make sure those pond barriers last a long time, and are just compounded by the fact that that pond receives a lot of rainwater and drains out, just constantly up and down. We talk about material advancements. HDPE, high density polyethylene, is what that stands for. It's basically the plastic, the black plastic pipes that you've seen. They're now starting to make riser rings, as seen in our catch basin example. The concrete, we see the lifespan of those, 10 to 12 years, according to this HDPE and some of the new technology as far as the riser rings, and they're supposed to last 50 years plus. And so it's definitely putting technology to use on some of our repair methods. And there's even monitoring and tracking nowadays, and these are kind of more on the forefront, not used as commonly as some of these other items, but RFID, radio frequency identification, can have your stormwater assets tagged on site, and making sure where everything is. Storm sensor can monitor water levels of certain things in real time. Continuous monitor adaptive control is what CMAC stands for. Almost like a dam to a river. You can basically watch for weather patterns, release a little bit more stormwater if you have a pond with a CMAC control on it, release a little bit more pond to allow more capacity if you're expecting some heavy storms moving forward. So a lot of things coming online, and we try to implement those when they when they make sense for a customer, and depending on regionally where they're at, and if it fits within the budget. It's some exciting times, and it allows us to be more efficient in the field and in getting some of these repairs and rehabilitations done for sure. But kind of as I finish up here, actions you can take. Again, the first thing for me is making sure you know what your stormwater assets are on your property and your facilities, and knowing that and having that O&M agreement, that operation and maintenance agreement from the municipality. Know what you have and know what you need to do with it by law would be the first step. And then, again, stressing that preventative maintenance program to meet the needs of your SCMs. Ensure the repairs, rehabilitations are done, and making sure your stormwater system is operating as designed. Part of the preventative maintenance program often meets the requirements with the O&M agreement as far as annual inspections. It may make sense to do 12 visits a year on a stormwater system, but the O&M agreement may only require 4. You're kind of getting the best of the both worlds. You're keeping things in compliance and ensuring your system's in good shape moving forward. And then finally, reaching out and getting that trained certified stormwater professional on site to help you out and consult with you if you need help. In companies like AQUALIS, we'd be happy to help any way we can, and definitely utilizing the expertise of a stormwater professional when it comes to rehabs and stormwater repairs and preventative maintenance is highly advised and can pay dividends way down the road. And that's really all I had. I'll take a minute to talk about AQUALIS and then turn it back over to Katie before Q&A. AQUALIS, we're the nationwide leader in post-construction stormwater and lift station management services as well, kind of total water quality services on your property. We have 12 regional branches. We're performing a lot of preventative maintenance and repairs yearly across the United States. I think we've worked in every U.S. state and Puerto Rico this year, and continuing to do a lot of work with a lot of good customers and clientele, which we like to refer to as true partnerships, making sure that their stormwater systems are working and business is running as possible, but also being good stewardships of the land and staying in compliance with the municipalities is very important as well. Again, water compliance is not optional. As I kind of talked through that, we're required, if depending on the size of your property, to maintain it and make sure things are in compliance with your local municipality and your own O&M agreement. AQUALIS can help with that. Avoid costly violations, reduce liability, improve system performance, and probably first and foremost, increase safety is our main goals when we're on site, and we can definitely help you if you're in need. Our guys in the field are definitely some of the best in the industry. They have way more certifications. Some of these I can't even pronounce, but I know our crews have them, and we utilize them day in and day out. But just a slide here to show, we're nationwide. We got the certifications. We got the experts on staff, both in the field and managing those in the field. I come forward and I kind of cut my teeth in the stormwater when I got into the facility maintenance side of things after school. Cut my teeth on the stormwater side, and so I've always had a soft spot for this kind of work, and I love the outdoors, love to fish, and I know the role we're playing as a company and as you guys are as property owners and property managers and engineers. You're doing good for the environment, and we appreciate you doing doing good things for both your property, your residents, your guests, your customers, and the environment as well. But as I end up here, we'll turn it over for questions. But if you need to get a hold of us, aqualisco.com is our website. Got the number on there. We're on LinkedIn as well. Feel free to reach out, and our good people will definitely get you in touch with someone that can help you out. And then as I finish up here, I'm going to turn it back over to Katie, our moderator, for any questions we have.
Thanks so much, Jeff, for that presentation. We will now take some time for questions from the audience. Looks like we have time for one or two. So let's start off with, is there a better time of the year to complete or start a repair or rehabilitation project?
Sometimes, yes. All depends on your particular area of the country, and it really depends on what that repair or rehab consists of. In that example that I showed on that rehabilitation for that Arizona project, that big underground storage tank, we completed that in the summer, which was a good time to do that in Arizona. They get a lot of their rain kind of more late summer, so we did it early. And we definitely wanted to do that before the rain started hitting and delaying us. So it really depends on what we're repairing. Weather often plays I'm talking about temperature. Weather can play a role in the timing of these things, but really depends on what we're repairing and where you're at, located within the United States. But definitely a good question, and definitely just something to keep in mind as you think about that.
Thank you so much. Um, there has been a lot of talk, of course, with supply chain issues, in a lot of industries. Have you seen that impact any of the projects lately for stormwater that you've seen?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think any industries escaped supply chain issues and labor and things like that. But we've been dealing with it. For the most part, things have been reasonable. I know some of the metals and steel has been an issue in the past as far as maybe great replacement. But it's something that we've been able to kind of manage throughout this process. But unfortunately, we haven't been free of it during this, and probably more so in other industries, more so than us. But we've dealt with it, we've seen it, and just try to mitigate it as much as possible.
Absolutely. Our next question is, what is the most common repair that you see?
I would say one of our most common repairs, as alluded to in the presentation, is Basin and/or sinkhole. A lot of times those two are hand in hand, but catch basins get beat up. A lot of things can happen to them. Obviously, cars are driving over them every day. Trucks are driving over them. They get hit by snow plows. The weather's hard on them. But anytime a sinkhole pops up, there's normally stormwater involved. Even if it's a random spot out in the middle of your parking lot, there's probably a good bet that there's a stormwater pipe underneath, and that's probably the cause of the sink. So between sinkholes and catch basin repairs are probably one of the most common. Sure.
Okay, thank you. It does look like those are all the questions we have, so that does wrap up our presentation for today. If any other questions come in after we conclude, we can answer them offline. But on behalf of Stormwater Solutions and our sponsor AQUALIS, I would like to thank everyone for their participation. This webinar will soon be archived at the same URL you used today and on estormwater.com, and can be viewed on demand, so feel free to share it with others. Additionally, we'll send an email in the next 24 hours with the webinar recording. So long, everyone. Stay informed and stay well.